Hello, Internet. Good morning. I am pumped to be here. Now, I am driving to North Carolina later today, and in order to get there at a decent time with children, I'm going to do my very best to limit this to just like 1 hour, maybe an hour and a half. I told my wife I'd be home anywhere between 9:30 and 10. So it's like a 10-minute drive from here. So any questions that you might have, let's go ahead and get those in. Um, I'm really excited. In the meantime, while you guys are thinking of your questions, let me go ahead and think of some things I can catch you up on. We've got a lot of open projects. I think we are back at 13. We've had some people move out, and I think 3 of those should be wrapped up today. So I'm really excited to get those on the market. Let's see what else. We've got a few more properties under contract. A massive win is a property came on the market a couple days ago, and it was on the market for about 5 minutes. It was perfectly priced. So I was actually on the phone with a realtor the time that it hit the market, and we put it under contract within a couple minutes. So that one is a huge win. It was listed for $33,000. It is a 2-bed, 1-bath brick ranch. It does have a full basement and a detached garage, and the entire thing. I'm not sure when it was built. Let me actually check into that. This is one of the better deals that we've done in a while, so it was fun to get a win like this under our belt. The entire house is brick and block, even the garage. So she's sturdy. I think the only exterior thing that we may ever have to do, it does have a driveway, so that might need to be repaved at some point, and then gutters and roof. Gutters and a roof are the only things on the exterior that could probably go wrong. Unless you were to count the windows as exterior. But most of those have already been replaced. Let's see. (1945) is when it was built. That was a good time for building properties. So we're pumped about that one. Very pumped. Happy Friday to you as well. Oh, Friday. That's fun. Yeah, any questions that you guys have, happy to answer. I'm even going to clean my glasses so I can read off these pending questions even better. And when I got this everything set up today, I did notice that one of these lights are flickering. It might be the bulb. I don't know. I've never problem solved one of these soft box lights before, so troubleshooted. What's the ARV? That's a good question. Conservatively, I would say about 60,000. Aggressively, I would say somewhere around 80. There's a really big discrepancy in these properties on how they're marketed. I don't know why this exists. I mean, I guess I do. If I were to really think about it. But if a property, like we just put another property under contract, we put it under contract for $57,500, and it's currently rented, and it is rented out for like $750 a month, I believe. And then the property right next door. Now, the way that the one that I just put under contract was marketed is it was marketed to investors. So they had no intentions of selling it to like an owner occupant. The house right next door also went on the market for sale, and it's listed at $95,000. It is nearly the identical home. The conditions very similar, but the one that's listed for $95,000 is marketed to owner occupants. So that's like the retail price. Because this one is currently occupied, and because it was marketed to investors, it was advertised for 57. So I guess I get it. The market rent on that one is probably like $950 because it's a really nice large house with also a big garage. So it's under market rent. and then presumably it's going to need a decent turn. Now, this one, I mean, honestly, there's not too much wrong with it. So I think it's one of those things where we'd probably put new flooring in the kitchen and bath. That's pretty standard. A lot of times, linoleum, the vinyl rollout things were pretty common when these were being rehabbed or turned the last time, I guess. So just putting down some new vinyl plank, and that's pretty much about it as far as like deferred maintenance on that property goes. So there's a large discrepancy in what an investor can buy a property for versus like what it's being sold to, if it's being sold to an owner occupant. And a lot of these investment properties are also being sold as is. So it's not like I'm going in there asking the owners to fix an extraordinary amount of things. We generally assume all of the deferred maintenance that comes along with the property. But for the one that I'm talking about, that was a big win for $33,000. I would estimate the ARV again conservatively at like 60 grand. I think if we were to get it occupied, freshen it up a little bit, we plan on putting in new flooring and painting the property. That's about it. The kitchen looks great. The bathroom looks great. So just getting rid of that carpet and that linoleum vinyl. I don't know if linoleum is the right word for it. I haven't talked about it out loud to anybody, so don't quote me on that. But I think it's just like the rollout vinyl before vinyl planks. It's just like a really thin sheet of, I don't know what the word linoleum means. You know what? I'm going to move on past that. So yeah, doing that, and conservatively 60 grand. But if we were to market it for like a retail investor, and I think likely what it would appraise for is somewhere in the high 70s, low 80s. So after it's all said and done, we might have, I don't know, between the paint and the new flooring, flooring prices are up along with all the other construction materials ever. So I would say that we won't put any more than $10,000 into it, including labor and materials. Good question. Good question. Thomas Thompson, or Thompson Thomas. That's a good reversible name. Good morning, Tolu. I hope you had a blessed week. I did. I missed last week because, again, I went down to North Carolina. So once a year, my mom and dad like to host this thing that is called Nana Camp. Now, my dad plays an active role in it too, so he helps. It's just, I guess he didn't make it to the name for some reason. But yeah, my mom likes to get my kids and my brother's kids and keep them for a week. So last week I dropped them off and my oldest was sick. So between those two, I just needed to be there and get to North Carolina a lot faster. But this week, since we have no kid in tow and our load is light, my wife allowed me to be here this morning. So I do my very best to never schedule anything on Friday morning so I don't have to miss this. But last week was just one of those anomalies where I didn't know any way around it. So yeah, it was a fantastic week. My wife and I got to spend an extraordinary amount of one-on-one time with our youngest daughter, which we don't normally do. So our oldest two take a lot of the attention bandwidth that we have. So that's been tons of fun. And then because of our lightened load, my wife and I also went out to dinner a couple times. So that was a fantastic thing in my book. So thanks, Tolu. Yeah, we had a very blessed week. Hey, William Boyd, I appreciate it, man. You have a much more awesome setup than I do from your microphone. Good morning. Any wisdom you can give about getting a property with not much capital? This is like my first property I'm looking to purchase. Yes, Tech J. I've got a lot of things to say about that. So the first thing that I have to say, let me go ahead and get this disclaimer rolling, even though everybody on YouTube abuses this. I am not somebody that you should listen to. You should definitely verify everything it is that I think I'm saying with somebody that's, a real person, like a attorney or not really a financial advisor. Financial advisors really don't like real estate because you can't really charge commission on real estate investments. Realtors, you should seek out like a realtor, talk to them, get to know your local market, talk to some other real estate investors in your market, and also your attorney. But yeah, finding a mentor in your local market is of the utmost importance. So let's see here. When it comes to buying a property with very little capital, I mean, there are a ton of different ways to get creative and do this. But it's really going to involve kind of selling yourself. So you are going to kind of have to put your sales hat on and find a property. Like if you want to do seller financing, I think that's a fantastic strategy. If you meet a real estate investor and get them to believe in you and kind of paint this picture of, it could be a win-win situation if they help you get into this property with little money down. The more that I get into real estate investing, the more that I really can't see seller financing as like a true win-win. But I think the best reason for somebody that owns a property to seller finance it to an individual is if there's a strong relationship there, and if that person really wants to see you succeed, believes in you, and they want to help you. Other than that, I think it's more exposure and more risk that they're taking on than necessary. But at the same time, it still can be a win-win on like a situational basis. So you could definitely do some seller financing. I mean, one of the things that we do that I learned from one of my mentors here in this market is, I mean, we borrow a lot of money from friends and family on first position mortgages. So like this house that we are buying for $33,000 that I mentioned at the beginning of this call, what we're doing is we are taking out a first position mortgage with a friend, and he's going to give us $50,000. So, let's leave closing costs out of this and any sort of like taxes and whatnot. So since he's lending us $50,000 on this property, we're going to owe $50,000. That's going to be what the mortgage is for. But at the closing table, since the contract is for $33,000, at the closing table, we're going to get a check for $17,000 back. Now, from that $17,000, that's where we're going to pay for the flooring, the painting, and anything else that we find that is needed there. Now, that is not a taxable event. So in theory, let's say that we rented out the property as is and we put no additional money into the property. Then we get a check for $17,000 that is, it's a non-taxable event because it's a financing of a property because it's debt, it's not income. Now, since the ARV, I've estimated between 60 and 85,000. I get that's a massive range. When we go to refinance that property with traditional bank, then all we need to happen is the property appraise for 60, 65,000. That way, 75% of the loan to value covers that original mortgage that we have of 50,000. So if it appraises for 65,000, then the bank will give us, let's say, 50,000 on it. I should probably use my calculator rather than just spouting out random numbers. Let's say 65,000 times 0.75. Yeah, 48,750. That's close enough. Close enough for government work. So you get the gist. So in that case, we refinance it. It's over 30 years. We pay back the original mortgage holder, our friend, and hopefully we get to do it again. So when we take on money in that way, this $50,000, it's going to be interest only. Generally, our terms are 2 to 3 years, and it's 10 to 12% interest only. So let's say this is 12%. That would be 1% per month. That $50,000 loan, we pay $500 a month for that. Now, taxes on this property are about like $400 a year. Insurance is probably going to be about the same, $400 to $600 a year. So if the property is rented out for $750, then we're still going to cash flow an additional like $100, $200 per month in addition to all of our expenses. So I would say that all of the deals that we've done, for the most part, we have very little of our own money in these deals, which is fun because that's like infinite returns, right? Now, I'm in your shoes. Whenever I got into this, I didn't necessarily have like a high paying W-2 job. I wasn't the most bankable individual, so I had to get extraordinarily creative. I'm a huge fan of creative financing. I think real estate is one of the few things that you can get into with very little money and come out with a lot of money. I don't know enough about stocks to draw like perfect analogies, but I don't know if it's as easy to buy a number of stocks with leveraged money as it is with real estate. So there's also a real asset behind this first position mortgage. So in the case that I've been blabbing about for a while now, that $50,000 loan that I took out from a friend, if I default for whatever reason, his $50,000 investment becomes $65,000 to $80,000, $60,000 to $85,000, whatever I said the ARV was. So he makes money because he gets that property, and it would be free and clear because he would have no mortgage on it. So it's a really, in my opinion, secure way to go about doing things, because worst case scenario, it's not like his investment goes to zero. It's supported and backed by a real thing. Forget where I was going with that to tie it back to what I was initially talking about. So yeah, I mean, real estate, you can get creative. There's just as many ways to make money in real estate investing as there are people investing in real estate. I really like saying that. I probably say that too often. And I think alternatively, like if you were to be like a high income earner with a solid W-2, you are bankable. I don't think I would recommend the way that we're going about doing things to the person that has a high paying job. A good friend of mine, he has like 25 or 30 properties now, somewhere in there. And he is a high income earning individual. And so is his wife. And they're doing just the traditional 75% loans, 25% down on each property. And they're extraordinarily bankable. They're living way below their means. And, on a monthly basis, they're putting like one property under contract and paying the 25% down. So they're doing a fantastic job. But I definitely think it's, that's the more stable and slower way to do things. But, the grass is always greener, right? So I talk to him and I say, man, I wish I was that bankable where banks would just throw loans at me. And I wish I had that high paying of a W-2 job that I could put down that much per month. And then, of course, he's saying, well, I wish I had a network of investors that would do all these things for me and I could grow as fast as you're growing. So I definitely think there are pros and cons to both sides. The biggest thing is just making sure that you have enough capital set aside to take care of any issues that may come about. So I think when you are looking into getting into real estate investing with very little of your own capital, the biggest risk and your largest exposure happens in the beginning stages of your portfolio when you don't have enough rental property income coming in to handle any of the things that may go wrong with these properties. So if you, when people come to me and say, hey, I only have $2,000, how can I get started in real estate investing? How can I buy my first property? I would largely and likely recommend that you don't. I would largely and likely recommend that you learn how money works, learn how to get an additional couple $1,000s. I think $10,000 is a safe number to get started. It's still pretty slim, especially when we're talking about real estate investing. But the last thing that you want is to buy your first property, the roof go bad, need to be replaced, and you have to get, well, now that lumber prices are way up, we used to pay like $5,000 or $6,000 per roof. Now we're paying like $12,000 to $14,000 per roof because of the decking. Costs used to be $7 a sheet. Now it's $70 a sheet. So prices have gone up a lot. So if you have to put $12,000 down for a roof, where's that money going to come from? And something that urgent that could break you. That could cause you to lose even more than you had to start with. So you're going to have a lot more exposure, a lot more risk. But at the same time, I say that there are also a ton of people that have built these real estate empires with none of their own money to start, and they didn't necessarily have any money when they started, but they really roughnecked it. They took on the risk. They crossed their fingers and hoped that nothing went wrong. It was more than they had to spend, and that's how they started. And I think over, like, if you have your 30, 40-year goggles on, I think it's really easy to do that. But when you're in the thick of things and when somebody's roof is leaking and you don't have the funds to fix it, that's a really tough spot to be in. So I think the answer to your question is somewhere in the middle. I know that was really long-winded of me to say all those things, but I meant every word. Good morning, Veronica. I've been a realtor in New York for the past 2.5 months, but my passion is real estate investing. Currently, I am in analysis paralysis stage. Our market is crazy. An average single family house is $500K. What market are you in? $33K, bro. Yeah, that's right. I'm a little bit southwest of you, man, in the wonderful state of Ohio. So all of our properties are in Dayton, Ohio. And yeah, man, I mean, I started in North Carolina. I did not get into real estate investing in North Carolina for probably similar reasons that you are going to have trouble getting into New York. So I didn't move to Ohio specifically to start investing in real estate, but it sure was a lovely coincidence. So the market that I was in North Carolina was like the Raleigh-Durham area, where, sure, when I first moved there, you could buy some homes for $15,000 to $50,000. But now you can even buy like a condemned home there for less than like $120,000, $150,000 maybe. So I couldn't have entered that market with the amount of money that I had on hand and do anything remotely impressive. So when I moved to Ohio and we bought our first duplex for $35,000. Now this $33,000 property that I had, again, that was a win. That was an offshoot. That was a really good deal. Mostly our properties, we've been spending $45,000, $50,000, $55,000 here recently. But when I first moved here, we bought our first duplex in August of 2017, and we paid $35,000 for that. And then, up until things started getting crazy, and crazy for our market, not compared to your New York market. We were buying properties on average, our all-in price, so purchase price plus renovations, were around $40,000, and now I would say we're hitting that $50,000 to $60,000 per property mark, all-in price. So our prices are increasing, but no, not at the levels of New York or California. And I think in this post-pandemic world that we live in, I think the biggest power play that you could possibly do is have one of these New York or California jobs work remotely. Move to a market similar to this one, where you can get properties for far cheaper than the market that you live in. Work remotely, bring in that high W-2 income, and then buy investment properties in your local market with your remote California or remote New York job. So I know that as a realtor in New York, you probably can't do that. The mastermind group that I have, let me see if I can put up that little banner there. The Seek Wisdom Mastermind, seek-wisdom.com/join. If you're interested in that, there's one guy in there that's doing that. He currently lives and works in California, but he's in the process of moving out to Florida, where he started investing and is able to get a lot more properties under his belt because of just, it's not California. So, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. And that's the cool thing about being people. We have the ability to move. So, that's a personal decision. I know I've talked to Tolu about that. No. Let me finish my thought. No, inspection reports are not 100% accurate. But yeah, I've talked to Tolu. Moving is good, especially if you want to dramatically change your financial position. And that's what the guy that is in California moving to Florida is doing. He's given himself like 2 to 5 years to go do as much as he can in the real estate investing space and then move back to California. So That was my original plan, was to move to Ohio for 2 to 5 years. But then I kind of fell in love with it because it's just so much fun. I'm having the time of my life up here. I'm having so much fun. I know you could tell from this monotone voice. Let's see. So the inspection reports, no, they're not 100% accurate. However, from an insurance perspective, inspectors do carry errors and omissions insurance. So let's say, in theory, that an inspector came out and said, yes, your roof is perfect. There's like 30 years left on this roof. Now, most inspectors would not say that because of, the whole CYA and errors and omissions thing. But let's say that's what they said. And let's say the inspector said, this appears to be a new roof. And then it turns out that the roof is 20 years old and it goes bad the following year. Well, this might be a horrible example. I'm just trying to explain what errors and omission is. So that would be an error, clearly, on the inspector's part. You purchased that property knowing full well that the roof was new and had a long life ahead of it. The inspector, said that in his report. So you could, in theory, open up an errors and omissions claim against the inspector, and that errors and omissions coverage will pay for however much that roof costs to replace, because the inspector put his seal of approval on it, and the opposite is what actually panned out. However, because of that, a lot of these inspectors tote an extraordinarily fine line of, just CYA. And if you read some of these inspections report, this is why I stopped using inspectors, is they'll go through and you'll have this report. Like, sure, they'll point out some decent, like, red major safety issue type things, which you may have overlooked. But for the most part, when anything is questionable, like for that example, if the roof was in question, instead of saying, yes, this is good, this looks like it has a long life ahead of it, they'll say something crazy like, condition appears to be good. Reach out to a roofing contractor to inspect further. So the last inspection report that I paid for, pretty much every line item around the things that I wanted more information about said something to the effect of, unsure about the condition, reach out to whatever type of contractor, a roofing contractor, reach out to an electrical contractor, reach out to an HVAC contractor. And she's like, what in the world? Like, I didn't want to spend this money for you to say maybe. So that's when I said, you know what? I'm going to just go ahead, and anytime I have a question about something. Now, granted, we got to a point where people don't necessarily mind doing this for us because of our portfolio, but I'll actually have electricians and roofers go out and look at properties that I think these things are questionable on if I'm uncertain about it. But for the most part, I don't mind these examples that I'm using, because if we have to replace a roof, then we're going to be good for the next 30 or so years. Actually, the roofs that we've been doing here lately, they come with like 50-year warranties, and like an unlimited wind mileage. So if anything happens to this roof, it's not even an insurance claim. It's a warranty claim on the roof. So that's pretty cool. And then, like, the furnaces, the HVAC units, same thing. It's like $1,500, $2,500 to replace a furnace, and they're going to be good for the next 10, 15 years after we do that. So these are just things that I more so factor into the purchase price. And ultimately, the thing that we use over and over again is we want the purchase plus rehab costs to be 75% or lesser of the ARV. And the reason for that is just so whatever money we might have in the property, if we refinance with a traditional bank, we can pull all of our money out. Because unlimited or infinite returns is really cool. We try to live in that space. I mean, maybe, but I feel like the CYA thing is still in place. Yellow Springs, Alton, Brisbane. That's a high dollar name, man. Alton, Brisbane. That should be in the history books. Do you put all your rental properties in different LLCs? If so, why? Hey, Ryan Williams, in all caps. I felt compelled to yell your name. I need to do a video about this. Legal structure is my least favorite thing to talk about. I think I could get really fired up if I have to answer too many of these questions in a row, just because ultimately it comes down to personal preference. And then a lot of times I feel like, and again, I'm talking about me problems, but a lot of times I feel like I'm explaining legal structure to people that don't necessarily even, it's really mean and it sounds very harsh, but and the analogy that I like to draw often is when you're in these like lower valued home, lower income neighborhoods, you see a bunch of like private property, no trespassing signs. But then you go to like these really nice, like higher income suburban places, and there's like no private property or no trespassing signs. And you look at these properties and it's like, what do you have so valuable that you have to plaster this all over the place? And it's just like a scarcity mindset where you are squeezing everything that you might own so tightly that it's just not a good look, in my opinion. So legal structure all comes down to personal preference and your personal risk tolerance. It's another me problem is I tried to write a book about this right shortly after I wrote my book about insurance. And, what really piqued my interest was I have some insurance clients that have a couple hundred homes all in one LLC. I've got another client that has 40, 50 homes in their personal name. Another client has 40, 50 properties. Each of them are in separate land trusts with separate LLCs as the beneficiary of each land trust. So which one is right? And I really tried to figure that out. But ultimately, it comes down to how much work you are willing to create on the back end and risk tolerance. So I think if you were to get an attorney and an insurance agent in a room together to help somebody mitigate their exposure or their liability, I think in a perfect world, the attorney would attempt to divide up the assets in as many separate entities as the client is comfortable doing. Now, obviously, I think in a perfect world, one property per LLC is the safest, because if you get sued for whatever reason by the person that lives in that property, then the only thing that you stand to lose is that property. However, in order to keep liability contained to that one LLC, you have to keep separate books, you have to file separate taxes, and all of those things will cost a lot of money and take a lot of time to keep everything that separate. So let's say if you were to have 50 properties, then it really comes down to how many separate books, how many separate bank accounts do you want to have? Because each LLC needs its own corresponding bank account. And, how many legal fees and CPA fees are you willing to pay in order to protect yourself? Now, the gentleman that has, several hundred homes all in one LLC, his philosophy is just over-insure everything. So he has massive amounts of insurance policies on all of his properties and large liability umbrellas to go over all of those. So his theory is, rather than pay the separate, keeping up with the separate bank accounts and separate bookkeeping and all of that, he just spends that money on better insurance, which, again, personal preference is what it comes down to. So I never finished my thought about if you get an attorney and an insurance agent in the same room together, the attorney will try and divide up as many, like all the assets into as many different buckets or LLCs or entities as possible. And the insurance agent would make sure that each entity had an appropriate amount of insurance so that in the event of a lawsuit, the insurance would be greater than the underlying asset. That way, if you get sued, let's say you have $1 million worth of properties in one LLC and $2 million worth of insurance. So in order for your asset to be at risk, the lawsuit would have to exceed $2 million. And generally, I think, a secret truth of the legal system is a lot of these attorneys are after the insurance money. Unless, of course, it becomes like really high profile. So I don't know. Those are all my thoughts on legal structure. Can you repeat the name of the mastermind group? Sure. Seek Wisdom is the name of the mastermind group. Let me put that banner back up. Let me make sure this website. Yep. I try to go there about once a month to make sure the link still works. Yep. Still working. Is it worth purchasing a property with almost the same cost and repair as the purchase price? $45,000 and $39,000 in repair. The market. What's that? Hey man, I owe you a text message. No worries. This is gonna be my response. Is it worth purchasing a property with almost the same cost and repair as the purchase price? Here's the example purchase price: $45,000 and $39,000 in repairs. The market. I don't know that last sentence, but it really depends on what. I mean, in this example, if the after repair value, like after you do everything, if it's like $250,000, absolutely, it makes sense to do that. If you're telling me that the purchase price is $45,000 and you need to do $40,000 in repair, and the property is only worth, let's round up, $85,000, then no, I would not do that. So the general rule of thumb that I keep for myself, and this is just so I can almost guarantee that I'm not going to lose any money, is I want the purchase price plus the rehab work to be at most 75% of the after repair value. So if I'm buying a property with after repair value of $100,000, I do not want to have more than $75,000 into the property. So the purchase price in this one, the purchase price could be $40,000 with $35,000 in repairs. So that way, I know that when I refinance later on with a bank, then I could pull out 100% of the money that I have into the property. And that's just to be most effective with funds, because that opens up that unlimited, infinite returns model, which is ideal. Hey, man. When the rental forgiveness moratorium ends at the end of the June, how do you think that'll affect the market and investors? I would look into that, man. I think pretty sure that the Supreme, whatever, my attorney told me that there was some ruling that deemed this entire eviction moratorium as unconstitutional. So it probably will not hold up in any case in any court. So I don't think that that's going to affect the rental rate much. I think, somebody else this morning was telling me that he's interested in seeing what happens when the foreclosure moratorium ends, because, that's like the federal government. And I guess they're just allowing any of their backed loans. They're doing that whole forgiveness, or not forgiveness, but forbearance type deal. He's interested in seeing like how that affects the market, and to see if that creates more opportunity for investors because the number of foreclosures that hit on the market. But I got to be honest, man, it's just one of those things that doesn't seem right, doesn't smell right to me. I'd be interested to see what happens as well. But I have a sneaky suspicion that a lot of these people that are in forbearance currently will just start paying their mortgage. I know a lot of people that click that forbearance button on their mortgages just because they made it so easy. So I kind of think those numbers are pumped up a little. But at the same time, I probably have a little bit of a false view around that because I am in Dayton, Ohio, where I truly feel that our market has been so depressed for so long that just as a little economy, we've boiled down to essential only jobs quite some time ago. So I'm living in this little bubble or pocket that I don't feel like has been impacted greatly by everything going on. So I guess at the end of the day, I'm going to defer to the middle of the road answer and just saying, I don't know. I don't think I'm the right person for that question. Or even, I don't even think I'm the right person to sit around speculating with. My antennas are up to find something fishy going on. Thanks, man. I sure do appreciate it. Oh, just like that. That was it. We made it to the final, to the last of the comment section. And it's 8:41. So if you weren't on when I first started, I am about to drive to North Carolina to pick up two of my kids. I told my wife I'd be home somewhere between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. So I'm guessing that I've got about 19 minutes left. Next week we'll do one of those long 2-3 hour live streams. We really get into a groove in it. Probably around like an hour and a half is what I noticed. That's when people are typing in tons of questions and there's just a good rhythm going. So next week, let's make a party of it. Is the appraisal report always accurate? No, I don't think so. There's one property that we have. We bought it for $125,000. It's one of the nicest properties that we own. It's depending on my mood and the day. Sometimes I think that property is nicer than the house that I live in. We bought it for $125,000. That's probably what it's worth. But because of the comp report, because of the neighborhood, the appraisal came back somewhere in like the $200,000 range. I think it was like 210, 215, somewhere in there. I know, Tolu, I know we cannot sell that property for $200 and something thousand just because of where it sits. It sits in the entire neighborhood. If that house were anywhere else, it would sell for like 200 all day. I agree with that appraisal, but this one in particular, where it sits, it has a very beautiful front porch, but that front porch faces the back of a bar and the bar parking lot. And then right next to it is a main road and like zero privacy. So it's not the ideal spot to raise a family because of the lack of yard, the proximity to a main road, and the fact that if you want to enjoy an evening on your front porch, you like immediately get consumed with that bar culture. So I think that's the best example that I have of, yes, that property will appraise for $200,000 or so every single day of the week. And just the way that appraisal reports are designed, that's truly the comps. That's what the comps show. And that's how properties are appraised, to be the comp. But I know that I could not sell it for 200. I might, because we made it so much nicer because we fixed a lot of deferred maintenance. We put about $20,000 to $25,000 into the property. I believe that I could sell it for 150, 160, maybe even 170 in like an ambitious world in this current market, but not the 200 range. I would say they're pretty close. Now, I would say since you are a super duper awesome researching investor, I would say that you should hop on PropStream and do some of your own comp reports. I think once you walk through like all the metrics and like how to pull comp reports, and that will show you the different ways in which you can make appraisals pretty flexible. So appraisers have a lot of leeway in how they draft up their reports. So long as they can justify and articulate to the bank why, then chances are they can almost put any price, not any price. I mean, they have to have comps in a specific region to support it. But, you know, there are a few times where our comps have come back either arbitrarily low or arbitrarily high, just because the appraiser was feeling a certain kind of way. I'm trying to think if I have anything to add there, and I don't think I do. I think that was a really good question and shockingly similar to your question beforehand. The state sued the federal government and overturned the CDC eviction moratorium. I guess it varies by market. I don't think so. I think it's just who had the gumption to sue the federal government. Some of these states that live by the teat of federal funding probably wouldn't dare raise a hand against what the federal government says. But hey, I'm not here to judge. Leon Finch, what's up, man? If I personally apply for a mortgage, could my LLC be a co-applicant in order to build credit history for my LLC? Nope. I hear a lot of videos and I see a lot of videos talking about building business credit. And I think that that's something that is only looked at by like these big box bankers. But dealing with like the local credit unions of where we do the majority of our loans, I haven't had one person ever mention, talk about, or inquire about our businesses like credit history or whatnot. Truly, all of the loans for LLCs that we have ever done have been based on the income from that LLC. Now, when it's a new LLC, like 2 years or younger, then the banks most certainly are probably pretty I'm getting words mixed up. Spectacle are like glasses. Skeptical. All right, let's just pivot. Because now that I'm getting those two words confused in my head, I don't know how to say the one that I mean. Skeptical? Is that it? Skeptical. Yeah, they don't know if they should lend you money or not. a little bit leery of it because it's a new venture and they don't know because, you know, the number of failed businesses, the percentage is so high that they just want to see you weather 2 years of business beforehand. So I think here is, you know, some advice. It's very not, you know, so there's a potential huge downside. So what I would say is if you are not in the position to buy a property in cash and put that property in the name of your LLC, if you get a personal loan that's like Fannie or Freddie loan, it's like a 30-year fixed whatever, then what I would say would be wise if you want your LLC to have a decent amount of history is I would do a quit claim deed from your name to the LLC after the loan is closed. Now, the risk of this is most mortgages have what's called a due on sale clause, which if you were to quit claim the deed to your LLC, then even though you own that LLC, the bank would see that as a sale or transfer out of the borrower's name, which is you. So even though you own that LLC, that's not the way that the bank is concerned about it, because all of their paperwork, all of their legally binding paperwork has your name, not the name of your LLC. So that, I guess, in theory, if you were to default for whatever reason, that would limit the amount of flexibility they had to actually reclaim the underlying asset. So because of that, there is that due on sale or transfer clause. So they could potentially, if they see that you have done that, they could immediately call that note due in full. That's the downside of it. The upside is that your LLC, all of the rental income from that property can be recorded under the books of the LLC. And you could, when you file your tax returns, you would file a separate one for your LLC, because what banks really want to see at the end of the day is 2 years worth of tax filings for a particular LLC. So the quicker you can get your first tax return filed for an LLC, the better. We had a really rough time getting any loans from our LLC during the first 2 years from a bank's perspective. And all of the loans that we got for the LLC in those first 2 years were not based on the income of the LLC, but based on the personal income of my brother and I. Until we passed that 2, maybe 3-year mark. And that's when we were able to qualify for loans based on the income of the LLC. Big risk in what I just said. Don't get your loans due on sale. I'm skeptical that your spectacular speckled spectacles are prescription. Can you see the speckles on my spectacles? I don't think so. I just cleaned them off. Silly Greg. That's hilarious, though. Thank you for that. And thank you for making me read that. Oh. Yeah, but I would steer clear from all those building business credit. What's that one that, some people even hire people and pay people to help them build their business credit. Dun and Bradstreet, is that it? Dunbar number or something. Yeah, I've never had one of these local banks ask for that. They're all in on just like the income, and if anything, they want to look at your personal stuff. Bradstreet, yeah, Dun and Bradstreet. Understanding how your personal credit works is a big deal. I didn't do that early on. That bit me for a little bit. Yeah, personal credit is way more important, in my opinion, than business credit. Cool. All righty. Hey, these last 8 minutes, what you got? This has been a good one. I'm really pumped. And like I said, next week we're going to do that the marathon live stream. So I'll tell you what, I am so bad at, before I start beating myself up, let me say that there's a lot of things that I'm really good at. Keeping track of my schedule is not one of them. I'm very bad at that. I had 3 closings scheduled for today. And on Wednesday night, my wife kindly reminded me that we were going out of town Friday morning when I had closings scheduled, like pretty much all afternoon until about 3 o'clock. Because normally every Friday is pizza night, Friday night pizza night. So I had things scheduled till 3 o'clock, which is normally when I stop everything that I'm doing and go pick up pizza. But that was not the case. So I had to push back 3 closings for today for next week. Now, fortunately, people were very nice about that, but I still felt very silly. How do you build your personal credit? I don't think it's so much as building it. I know that I know you might be in a little bit different of a predicament, but I think it's just doing a lot of things right for a very long period of time. I guess that's what building is. So I take it back. Yeah, you just have to do the right things. I recorded a video on it where, and I recorded that video right when all of this was fresh in my mind. So I would say that video is way more accurate than anything that I could probably say right now. The things that I remember are on-time payments, keeping your utilization to lesser than 30% of the allotted credit amount. So if you have a $10,000 line of credit, never use more than $3,000 of it. Which that's the main reason that, and then not having many inquiries. So one of the mortgage loan officers that I was working with, he told me that generally, like 800 is a fantastic score for an individual. However, he said like a little known trade secret is that if that individual is a real estate investor, then it gets bumped down to 700. So if you are a 700 and you're a real estate investor, that's just about the same as being an 800 as not a real estate investor. Because when you invest in real estate, every single time you apply for a loan to purchase a property, refinance a property, even if it's in the name of an LLC, likely the bank is still going to pull your personal credit. And that's going to be a hard inquiry. And the number of inquiries that you're supposed to have in any like given year or something is supposed to be kept under a certain amount. And then another thing that real estate investors often do is if we have a $10,000 line of credit, then at some point there's a chance that there's $10,000 on that. Because a lot of real estate investors love playing the credit card point game, because I know my brother and I started doing it, and it's crazy. I mean, my brother is the one that does the majority of the financial stuff. So he knows all these numbers like the back of his hand. I don't. I just vaguely remember conversations that he tells me. But, we spend so much money on a monthly basis that we run it all through a credit card, especially our taxes. Like we're paying $48,000 in property taxes this half. Oh, it's silly to even say that out loud. And we're running it through a credit card. Now we're paying it off immediately. But depending on when that credit statement is pulled and when it's reported to the bureau, I mean, our personal credit fluctuates based on the utilization of those cards at any particular time. So if you were to get really serious and really need your credit to be solid, you would want to make sure that you would want to see like each credit card company processes or pulls their statements on different dates. So let's say American Express pulls it on like the 10th, then you're going to want to make sure that your utilization is under 30% prior to the 10th of the month. And then you could have it higher than that after, but just while it pulls that statement and reports that to the credit reporting bureaus, you're going to want that to be lesser than 30%. But yeah, I mean, I think when people say that they're in real estate and their credit is around 800 or so, it's just a matter of time, depending on the pace at which they're growing, that their credit gets somewhere in the 600s or 700s, just because the sheer number of inquiries and the utilization. We need to bring your brother in, please. We want to learn numbers. Yeah, that would be fun. I'll tell him that. If he were here in Ohio, look at that. Yeah, if you were here in Ohio, he'd probably make a lot more appearances. He's in Florida, and I know we could do the Zoom thing, but we've done a few Zoom live stream type things, but technology and lag is a real thing. But yeah, I'll let him know, because I should see him sometime today or maybe tomorrow down in North Carolina. Would a possible path to partner with my LLC, loan in my name, and have all business transactions go through the LLC, thus building history that way? I don't. That's a question for a CPA. I'm pretty sure whoever the loan's name is in is who the transactions need to run through. Now, just thinking out loud and not being a CPA, I think you might be able to do something like if the loan is in your name, you might be able to lease the property to your LLC, and then the LLC could like operate the property, almost like a triple net lease, where your LLC pays for everything, and then they pay a certain amount to you on a monthly basis. That might be a way to do it. But I would get with like a real estate friendly CPA. Actually, let me see if I can find this information real quick. Here you go. Here is the website for a guy named Philip Weichert. He's the second name there. I would reach out to him and talk to him about real estate stuff. He is the guy that I go to with all of my real estate LLC type questions. And he's everywhere. He could do your taxes regardless of what state you're in. That's who I would go through. Do you think real estate prices will continue to go up in Cleveland, or should I wait a few months before buying an investment? I never recommend that anybody sit on the sidelines. I do not think that that's a good strategy. When I first got into real estate, I bought my first property in 2017. I remember listening to Bigger Pockets, everybody saying that the real estate prices are overextended and a correction is imminent. And a lot of people that were here in the local community, like the real estate meetings that I would go to, they all said this exact same thing. And I'll tell you what, Alan, if I listened to those people, I wouldn't have half the portfolio that I do. I wouldn't have a portfolio at all. And I would have been sitting on the sidelines continuing to watch these rates increase. So even if a market correction happened, then it likely won't affect the rental rates. So long as you're analyzing these properties based on cash flow, then you should be good. You shouldn't have much to worry about in the case of correction. You might not be able to sell the property. You might not be able to refinance the property. But if you are still cash flowing, then you are going to be okay. So like even back in 2008, when the real estate market got hit harder than it probably ever has, rents didn't go up, but they also didn't go down. So all of the investors that were not overextended on lines of credit and whatnot did okay. The people that analyzed for cash flow are just fine. And I actually talked to a lady. She wanted to sell like 11 of her properties, and her husband, they've been investing in real estate since like the 80s, 90s. And they held their properties after 2007, 8, and they continued to rent them out, and they were largely unaffected, not impacted at all by that, because it was their long-term thing. It was their long-term plan. Alrighty. Well, I need to skedaddle. I need to get on this interstate and go down south. So thank you all for being here. Again, I'm happy I was here. Sorry it's cut short, but next week let's have a live stream party. So bring all of your friends, and let's have like a 2.5, 3 hour long real estate conversation. That'd be tons of fun. All right. Next week, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you all soon.